Good evening once again to Evening Cookery, here in the deepest depths of southern France, where isolation has continued for 13 days now. Yesterday, you saw just a snippet of what goes on in this very peaceful house. You may or may not have remembered from yesterday that yes, I do live alone here in the deepest depths of southern France. This evening I'd like to try and take you on a journey and be slightly more complicated with the process of cooking an evening meal. I am aware that it's a Saturday evening and lots of people tend to go to a takeaway, a restaurant, other venues where perhaps they don't have to spend hours in the kitchen. And again, as I mentioned yesterday, I'm not keen to spend a lot of time in the kitchen preparing meals for one. This evening though, I intend to take things up just a slight level. And there are certain hazards attached to the meal that I'm going to be preparing this evening. Now, if you'd like to follow along, the list of ingredients are quite, let me say, comprehensive. So it's not something that you could just go into your larder, your pantry, your cupboard, or even a shelf and find those ingredients all at once. You do have to be prepared. So, without further ado, what I'd like to say now is I'm going into my drawer. Now this drawer, as I mentioned yesterday, is full of utensils and it's very easily reached. And you may be able to see at the bottom of the camera how easily this drawer slides in and out. I'm reaching now for a knife. It's a different knife to yesterday. I'm very keen to show you the range of knives that I have. One thing about these knives that's peculiar to all of them, however, is the point and the blade. They are quite sharp. So you do have to have a certain level of professionalism when you're dealing with knives, because if they're put into the wrong hands, then certain disasters just might happen. So you do have to be very, very careful. So I would urge anyone under the age of 6 perhaps not to play with these knives. Anyone over the age of 6, I'm sure you'll be all right. Why have I got this knife? I know you're asking me this. Well, that will become clear very soon. What I have done in preparation for this is to remove the food that I'm going to prepare earlier from the freezer. It would be somewhat foolish of me to perhaps try and work with frozen food when you only have a knife to try and cut this up. So, on the menu this evening, as I said before, is something slightly more complicated and perhaps requires a little bit more attention on my part. However, before I start, I am aware that I am missing a vital ingredient and one that I possibly cannot proceed without. So again, I'm reaching for an empty glass. Empty glass for me serves no useful purpose. So I'm going to head on over. And once again, I'm going to fill up. And here we have a suitably full glass of wine. So in preparation for everyone else embarking on their Saturday evening, I'd like to say santé, as we do in France, and cheers in England. Other languages may apply. So let's get cracking, shall we? I removed this from the pizza freezer yesterday evening. Now, as you can see, it's a box. Now, this box is fraught with hazards. You have to be so careful once you touch this box to be careful that you don't cause an accident in the home when you finally discard it. So what I'm going to do with this box is I'm going to open it, and I'm going to reveal to you, the watcher, what's in this box. I know you don't know what's in this box. It's full of surprises. You couldn't possibly guess by any packaging or colour wrapping or photographs what holds this box. It's where this very sharp knife comes in useful. So when you approach this box, approach with caution, because sometimes boxes bite back. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to very gently push down on the lid of this box with the knife, and if you can hear that, it's a very reassuring sound of the knife slicing through. Once again, I must say that I am practiced and professional and have many years' experience with knives. Novices shouldn't attempt this at home. Once the box lid is split, you can then open it and slide very gently, because what is here is incredibly fragile. You can then put the box to one side and just take a moment to reflect on what you've just achieved this evening. It may be that you might want to imbibe some more of this red wine, or maybe more of your red wine. Once the interior of the box is revealed, another hazard approaches. Because the food that's attached to the box is encased in cellophane. Now, there may be some among you that, when preparing a food like this, wouldn't hesitate to put this immediately into an oven and think, I'm going to go and sit and watch a bit of telly while that cooks. Now, I have to say you'd be wrong, because if your oven is hot, then I'm afraid the cellophane that's attached to this piece of food would probably melt, and it would melt onto your food, and it would probably have a detrimental effect to the taste. Now, once again, we bring the knife back into practice. Once again, I would remind you that I have many years as a professional knife user, and amateurs shouldn't attempt this without a responsible adult. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to gently lay the knife on top of the cellophane wrapping and just pierce. And you can feel the pierce. As the knife slices in, you can feel that you're slicing through and into the middle of something that has texture and depth and taste, I hope. Don't be afraid to stop using the knife if you feel confident enough, because then what you can do is you can then use your hands to remove the cellophane wrapper from this piece of food. But do be careful, because sometimes cellophane does get wrapped around your fingers and it's a devil's job to then remove it. But being the professional that I am, I have managed to remove it. What I then do is I then place my hand fully stretched underneath. Yes, you may have guessed, tonight is a pizza. It's a pizza royale. It's not just any ordinary pizza. It's a pizza royale. So I wonder, like many of you probably are, wondering what makes it royale? Well, it's a very good question. Because for it to be a royale, it needs to have something rather special. This royale is given its name because it has olive on it. Any ordinary ham and cheese pizza? would no doubtedly be called ham and cheese. Or perhaps here in France, where I live, in the deep, isolated southwest of France, it would be a fromage jambon pizza. But no, this is Royale. I would assume that there is perhaps a large amount of cheese and olives attached to the pizza. You may also have noticed that my hand has been very secure in holding this pizza. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move very gently to an oven. I have taken the precaution to reheat this oven so that it achieves a temperature that is conducive to cooking this pizza. Many of you, I know, have made the mistake, as have I in the past, of putting a pizza into the oven not having turned it on. One of the most important things about pizza is that it's cooked. It has to be hot. So let's take our walk very slowly to the oven. I'm afraid you can't come with me, but I'll be right back. But I'm sure you'll hear the sound of the oven door opening and closing. So as I approach the oven, I open the door. It sends out a reassuring whoosh of heat, which tells me, with my professionalism under my belt, that that pizza oven is hot enough to take a pizza and cook it. This just leaves behind the small matter of the cellophane and the box. What you decide to do with these is entirely your own concern. Personally, for me, it's a Saturday night. It's early. Who knows when this might come in handy. Now, that pizza may take approximately 10 minutes to cook. So I'll return in 10 minutes and I'll show you the fruits of my labours. If, like me, you're as exhausted as I am, I think you deserve to sit down and enjoy some more of that red wine. I know I'm going to, because that was extremely strenuous. But I will return to you. So here we are, once more. The finished product has just been removed from the oven, and I'd like to show you why this is a Royale. It's hot. It's crisp, and I do believe it's cooked, which is a bonus for anything to eat in the evening when you want a hot meal. One of the things I like to do with a pizza once it's cooked is to season it, not with salt. Oh no, because when you have a Royale, the olives have a natural salt, which really enhances the flavour. But what I do like to have is pepper. Now this pepper is not any old pepper. This is a pepper that you geniusly screw top. And what was a peppercorn becomes a pepper grind, I like to say. Now I like to be quite generous with my pepper. It's very important that you get a good zing when you have this on your pizza. Something else that is incredibly important when you're eating a pizza is how you divide it up, particularly if you're sharing. Now, as you may know, here in isolated southwest of France, I live alone. So this pizza is not for sharing. This pizza is solely for myself. So instead of dividing it with either a knife or a pizza cutter or anything that resembles those kinds of kitchen tools, I like to take just a piece of kitchen roll. Because as I dive into it, and remember from yesterday, I only have a small appetite, so it is a small pizza. But I do like to attack it with my fingers, normally burning the tips of them. But it's a price worth paying. I'd like to thank you this evening for joining me on this epic voyage of pizza cookery. And I'm going to go and sit down and enjoy this. And I hope that you will join me on another evening for evening cookery in isolated southwest France. Enjoy your Saturday night. I know I will.